All right, so right now I'm doing something I've never done before. I just did one pass. It looks like it's gonna work. I'll be no-till planting soybeans with a non-no-till planter. This is just a generic old 2-row planter. You can find anywhere from $500 to $1,000. This is the planter we use to plant all of our corn here and most of our soybeans, although I do have almost an acre of broadcasted beans out there this year. But you can see this ground here is pretty much a sandy loam, so it's not really clayey at all. Plus we just had, you know, maybe like an inch of rain throughout the last couple days, so it's pretty soft ground. You can see that soybean right there is easily an inch down. I was gonna broadcast this, but we're supposed to get supposedly a ½ inch of rain tomorrow, and after that it's just gonna dry up. Next week is gonna be in the 90s, so I think broadcasting would work, but I'd have to go super heavy on the seed. This way, I just checked. Looks like the row's right here. You can see the slit in the ground right there. I mean, it's slicing through all the way up to my second knuckle right there. I can't really see any seed, but I stopped 3 separate areas. Right there's a seed right here. Oh, never mind. I couldn't really, it's hard to see the seed in there, but I don't see it sitting on top. I stopped 3 different areas on the way down. This is a small little strip, maybe a 1/6 of an acre, not much. I actually kicked up a fawn right on the edge, back that way a little bit. Pretty big fawn too, just laying in the weeds there. There could be, I was thinking there could have been one in the actual rye, but it was just right on the edge. That's kind of cool. You can see this slice in the ground pretty good right here too. With the dry conditions ahead, you know, I was afraid, you know, getting these soybeans in the ground, it should definitely help the germination, because I know in these no-till soybean plots, you have to get a pretty good amount of rain. I should have had this planted already. We had a good amount of rain in the last week, and that would have been enough to germinate these. And then I'll after I drive through here a bunch, it should be pretty much packed down. But if it's not packed down good enough, I'll bring the cultipacker out here and crush it all down good and then spray it before the night's over. But yeah, I'll have to check a few more spots. I'll show you in the next pass down. So this is what it's looking like. Out here on the hard compacted ground on the ATV trail, they're going in, but they're not really getting covered. As soon as you get into this looser ground where it was tilled last year, I mean, it's cutting in pretty darn good. Right there's the seed. That is gonna grow 100%. This is looking awesome. You can see it's just doing a much better job cutting through, because this ground has to be just less compacted here, being tilled just a year ago. I don't see any seeds on top. They're all way down there somewhere. Wow. I did not think this was gonna work this good. And they're going in deep too. This is gonna be deep enough for corn. Those seeds are way down there. Here's a really good look at what it's looking like here. You can see these discs right here, they're pretty sharp, so they're gonna cut through this loose ground pretty easily. And you can see it's cutting down at least 1.5 to 2 inches, almost too deep for these soybeans. I'm gonna plant these last 2 rows, and I'm gonna switch to corn and do about maybe 4 rows of corn through the middle in the most sun, and I'll do beans on that side again. Yeah, this is looking good. I'll come back through and pack this down a little bit later too. Here we are, first pass with the corn. I decided I'm only gonna put 2 rows of corn in here because the coons are probably just gonna get it all. This is that silage corn. It's like 115-day maturity. It's gonna be green late, you know, into September, and the coons destroyed this plot really bad when I had this into corn 2 years ago. But anyways, you can see the corn right here. Putting it in nice and thick. That's what it looks like right here, but after the packing wheel goes over, it's covered up with mulch. And then right here's the slit in the ground. And right there's a seed. That was like covered up with some dirt like that before I brushed it away. See, there's another seed right there. Oh, I lost it. Right there. So they're down there, but this like slit in the ground is still kind of here, but that's kind of there too when they no-till anyways. This stuff is literally like 4.5 to 5 feet tall, along with all the weeds. And even the soybeans are in here from last year. I never even got a chance to mow them down. Well, it took a little bit, but I packed the rest of it down with the four-wheeler tires. This is the final product. Look at how nice this looks. Just a green carpet covering up the soil. The rows are down in here. The only worry I have is it was planting these beans pretty darn thick. So they got to go through 1.5 to 2 inches of soil. Then they got to go through, you know, like a 2-inch layer of mulch of dead soybeans, dead weeds from last year, and all this rye. I mean, here's the rows. This actually, some of that rye is actually getting pushed down in the row. And driving around with the four-wheeler, you know, kind of closed all these slits. So this might actually work better with corn, but we'll see how the soybeans do. I put quite a few rows of the beans out here. I got 2 rows of corn, like I said. The corn will emerge probably better than the beans, honestly. You can see this is just a small little plot. The biggest area is right here, maybe 15 yards crossed. Probably 15 yards. Up there, it's pretty narrow. All right, so here we are. Not sure how long this is after, but probably a little over a week, and things are starting to come up. You can see right here, the 2 rows of corn right through the center. And then you can kind of see some bean rows over here and kind of see some bean rows over here. As I predicted, the corn is up better than the beans, because I probably should have just used the old 2-end tractor, because I can adjust the hitch height and it wouldn't have been planting those beans so deep. But in certain areas, they look pretty good. You know, they're all up right here. Really nicely, actually. But in certain areas in here, they're really struggling. You can see they're coming through, but there should be like a row. You can see right here, there's one that's coming up. And this is the row right here, right in that slice in the ground. It's hard to see. I don't see anything right here. There definitely had to have been a couple seeds right there. Right here's one. And you can see, like right here, you can't really see the rows that good. You can see this row. But I don't know. These ones should come up, but we might end up getting a little bit thinner rows over here. Some of them probably won't come up, but you can see the corn is pretty consistent all the way down. Nice even emergence. So I knew looks like it's going to work better with corn, this method, unless I try using the old 2-end tractor. But I wanted to use the four-wheeler to get as much downforce as possible to push through, you know, because no-till. But probably would have worked with just right here. They're coming up, I guess. But like right in here, I can't quite see the rows yet. Like right here's a couple that are up. You can see this is not good. All these weeds starting to come in. This is a bunch of old weed thatch right here from last year. And you can see the rye might be a little bit thicker down here, a little bit thinner down here where there was some weeds last year. Right up there in the front where I just was, the rye was nice and thick. There was no weeds up there last year either. But I'm probably gonna have to come in here and spray this just to take care of these little weeds so they don't get too big. Because the whole idea of using this method is just to control weeds. And it doesn't look like it's doing its job really. All these seeds are from the big tall weeds that were in here last year. So if I can just spray and nuke all these little weeds coming up while they're small, I don't think we should have any other weeds coming in, but maybe. I don't know. We'll see. The beans are coming up, but they're just looking a little bit stressed because they had to go through quite a bit. Yeah, still a little bit early yet. I'll have a couple more updates in this video, but they're just starting to poke up, and a few of them are struggling. Well, it's been a really long time since you've seen this plot. Corn looks fantastic. Beans are a failure. These right here are the best beans in the plot, and even these are really still getting picked on by the deer. Pretty much everything got nipped off at least once in the plot. And I've sprayed it already once to kill off a big flush of weeds like this. This is all lamb's quarters. My plan is to, I'm seeding it right now with brassica. There's a 90% chance of rain tomorrow evening. Not much after that though. Tomorrow I'm gonna come in here and spray this. Just drive right down this side and then right down this other side of the corn. I already seeded this side. I got to go back and get a little bit more seed and put it in on this side. Put some brassica seed down in here and spray it tomorrow and hope for the best, I guess. The last thing I want is this whole area to just fill in with weeds. I think it planted the soybeans thick enough, but man, this is just such a small spot. And I think there was a doe and a fawn bedding right here in this this cutting area that I've kind of cleaned up some of the buckthorn and let more grasses and forbs and dogwood and willow kind of come in. And I kicked up a fawn once or twice right here on the edge. There was a doe right in here living right next to this plot, and she just decimated this. And they're still eating on them a little bit, but maybe I'll get a few beans out of here. So I don't want to like till up the whole area, but I probably almost could. But then again, if I do come in here and replant and till up the whole area, I'm still going to end up with a whole bunch of weeds at some point competing with the brassica. This ground is just full of this lamb's quarters. So I think what I'm going to do next year, I'm going to definitely come in here and seed this whole plot with rye again. But next year, I'm going to plant it all with corn. And hopefully the corn can shade out the weeds good enough. And then the year after that, I might just convert this to clover or something and just kind of just mow it, and just keep the weeds down, I guess. Or maybe I'll do brassicas, I don't know. But this is definitely a failure. The rye method worked. I mean, the beans did germinate and get up through everything, but I think it's just such a small planting, it didn't work that good. If this was on a larger scale and if I had better weed control, I mean, it works, but yeah, I mean, look at the corn. I mean, this is definitely looking nice. Looks like it's showing a potassium deficiency, or this a potassium or nitrogen deficiency, one of the two. Probably, honestly, nitrogen. This rye probably sucked up whatever was here. The beans I had here last year were tilled up, and I had tons of weeds up here on this top section. The beans didn't look that good. The only area the beans looked good was right up front up here. And this is actually where the corn looks better. See all this? This is all potassium or nitrogen deficiency. All this yellowing on the outside of the leaves. But then there's a few better spots in here. This corn's going to produce something. This is silage corn. This will be really late corn. It'll be really juicy and doughy come September. So the coons are probably going to get most of this corn. Coons always gravitate towards the softer kernels, you know, when they start eating on them. They'll eat them in the, they'll eat them in the summer, but then come October, November, when they're stocking up for the winter, This will be probably the hardest hit spot. This is like the latest planted corn I have. And it's just such a small plot, and they like crawling around in this ditch right here. But yeah, over here is like no beans. Almost every one got nipped off by the deer when it first popped up. So I'm just gonna come in here, put a decent amount of brassica seed. When you just seed onto hard packed soil like this, you don't get the best take or the best germination by the brassica. So I'm gonna put them in kind of thick. And if they do come in super thick and I'd rather have thick brassicas than a bunch of weeds. I got so many other brassica and soybean plots. It's fine if these brassicas are a little bit overseeded. I just want to get something growing here other than weeds. So yeah, I'm gonna seed this side down and get out of here. All right, so out here for the final update of this no-till corn and beans plot, this small little strip. Like I said in the last update, I broadcasted brassicas in the areas I had beans, and you can see they're coming up. I put them in a lot thicker than what they're coming up here. Whenever you get hard packed ground like this, you gotta overseed if you want to get the correct amount of plants out here. I mean, I seeded way more brassicas than this. You can see we got a purple top turnip here. These tillage radish seem to germinate the best. The forage rapes and kales, like these ones, they don't, that's like I have the least amount of those out here on these no-till plantings. And we got patches of, you know, the water hemp in here. This is actually silage corn right here. It's a little shorter than what it was in here 2 years ago when I had some silage corn in here. But you can see this corn looks really nice. I plan on overseeding this whole plot with rye this September, basically about a month from now. And I'll do no-till corn into this whole thing next year. I just got 2 rows of corn in the middle, as you saw earlier in the video. The coons look like they could be starting to get in here. I wouldn't be surprised if the coons get all this corn. This really isn't much. It was just a test. If I have the whole field into corn, then there's usually something left. But there's this ditch right here, and they really like hanging around this plot. 2 years ago when I had this whole thing into corn, they got a good amount of it. But yeah, up here the beans, they're the ones that are here are producing pods now. But this corner up here is actually weedier than where I first walked into the field. You can see the rye didn't really do its job 100%. We got a lot of water hemp in here, and this is all lamb's quarters, these smaller ones. The lamb's quarters you can kill somewhat with glyphosate. That's what this is all right here. But the water hemp is almost Roundup resistant. A lot of the plants, I should say. But yeah, this little patch of beans up here, I mean, it's only about knee high. I don't know exactly when I planted it, but this corn is actually on the shorter side too. I mean, this is almost full sun right out here, like right up there. I know this is kind of a sandier ground. It's not as dark as some of our plots here. And this plot does dry out with the sun beating on the ground here. But these beans don't really look the best. Over by these beans here, I don't really have many brassicas coming in. I overseeded this whole spot into brassicas, and I don't know if the seeds just didn't work their way down to the soil. That's probably what happened, because this rye is very thick. I mean, you got to literally go down an inch through this stuff to hit the soil. Now, right here's a brassica, but hardly anything coming up. The rye grew really good right where these beans are, because it's like full sun right here. Where I started, it was kind of shady. Over on this edge is pretty shady too, but the rye, I remember this is where the rye was the strongest. And a little better weed control right here, but where all those weeds are, the rye was pretty thick there too. As you come up here and you look, you got weeds here as well. They're just set back a little more. I had to spray this the day I planted it. I killed the rye. I sprayed it one time, you know, when the stuff was maybe a couple inches tall. There was a whole bunch of little weeds coming in like this. And then I sprayed it again and killed some of the lamb's quarters, but some of that stuff survived. You can see there, you know, there was a few bigger weeds up there. Well, I'm just surprised that the brassicas just couldn't really take off. didn't really germinate at all right up here, which kind of sucked. So that's why I'll be filling this whole thing in with rye, but even with the rye, it might not get through the rye on the ground, the rye seed. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure next year's rye crop probably won't be as thick as what this year's was in the spring, because I'll have all this corn debris. I'll just plant right through this corn, plant right through all the standing rye, and it'll all be corn next year, because it seems like the corn worked out pretty good. Better than the brassicas, better than the soybeans. So the soybeans mainly got nipped off in here. Plus the soybeans, you know, they're not like corn where they're gonna get up and above the weeds. There was some weeds in here inside the corn, but you can see it pretty much outcompeted it. I got one spraying on it and knocked back most of the weeds, and the corn just took off after that. So this whole area will be corn next year, and it should turn out into actually a productive plot. Right now it's like probably the biggest failure plot on the property here. Man, this is a thick spot of weeds. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video and the process, and just kind of maybe you learned something from it. I think this would have turned out a lot better if the deer weren't in here, because there was soybeans coming up that's earlier in the year, but I think they just nipped off most of them. And these ones have been nipped off multiple different times. You can see nipped off there, nipped off here, and it's just such a small plant. It doesn't really have the nutrients or power to get established. But man, this corn looks nice, that's for sure. It's just starting to tassel out, you can see, and it's probably already 9 feet tall. My standing reach is over 8. So that's another 2 feet. So I mean, it's probably close to 10 feet. Probably 11 feet when it tassels, 11, 12 feet. The tallest stuff right here is a little shorter. Like I said, this is silage corn, so that's why it's getting a little bit taller. All right, well, see you in the next video. There'll be some brassica videos coming out soon, probably.